Hello and welcome back to our history class, my dear students. Let us continue our history, Unit 2, Forest Society and Colonialism, Unit 2, Chapter 1. Let us discuss the Dutch colonial forestry in Java, Indonesia. Indonesia is a country of nearly 3,000 islands, and Java is an important island province of Indonesia. The Dutch from Holland started their colonial or commercial forestry in Java. Java was an island rich in forests and rice. There were also many villages in the fertile plains of the province. Many tribal communities were living in the mountainous region of Java, and they practiced shifting cultivation. The Mataram kings was ruling in Java in the 18th century, and those who were skilled woodcutters and shifting cultivators were a tribal community called the Kalangs. When the Dutch established their control over the forests of Java, they forced the Kalangs to work under them and for them. The Kalangs revolted in 1770 against the Dutch forest policy. The Dutch ultimately conquered the whole territory of Java, controlled the people and their forests in the 19th century. The Dutch passed forest laws on the similar colonial pattern of law elsewhere. The forest laws restricted the access of the villagers to the forests. They were not allowed shifting cultivation and grazing in the cattle in the forests. Trees could not be cut for the making of boat and house. Like the British in colonial India, the Dutch required the trees in the forests of Java for shipbuilding and making of the railways. They introduced a colonial forest service. The law declared that the Dutch state was the owner of the forest in Java. Anybody violating the law was punished, bringing distress to the tribal farmers. In 1890, one Surontiko Samin of the Teagood Forest village of Randup Latung raised the standard of resistance against the Dutch colonial authorities. He questions the Dutch state's ownership of the forests of Java. His argument was that the Dutch state or the Dutch colonial authority had not created the wind, water, earth and the trees, so it could not own it. A widespread movement was started, and Samin was engaged in spreading the message of the movement among all people of Java. It was a peaceful movement. By 1907, 3,000 families who were forest dwellers became the followers of Samin. They resisted the survey works of the forest officials. They lay down on the grounds as a mark of protest. The message was carried far and wide but died down slowly. The Dutch colonial forestry was carried out, but the resistance movement left behind a legacy of the tribal ownership of the forests of Java. By 1980s, the government in Asia and Africa had changed their forest policies. They adopted the policy of protection and conservation of the forests with the cooperation of the tribal people. Social forestry and later on, joint forest management was introduced in place of commercial forestry. But the legacy of the colonial scientific forestry is still carried out on in the administration of the forests in India. Yet the tribals of India still follow their shifting cultivation due to absence of a viable alternative. However, the environment and ecosystem of the forests are being protected. Gradually, the tribes are responding to the need of the protection and preservation of the forests. With this, we conclude our chapter, Unit 2, Chapter 1 of our history textbook. Thank you.